Welcome to Honey Bee. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell. Real stories of love, lies, and betrayal, where every truth stings. Let's begin. When I look back now, it's hard to believe how quietly I walked away from a life I had once believed was everything I ever wanted. For 3.5 years, I lived beside the woman I thought I would grow old with. We had built routines, shared laughter, and made promises that felt unbreakable. But love, I learned, doesn't always disappear in storm. It sometimes fades in silence, buried under secrets. It started subtly, the kind of change you can't pinpoint but feel deep in your bones. My wife, Emily, had always been warm, affectionate, and open about everything. She would tell me how her day went, talk about the little things that annoyed her at work, and share memes with me late at night. But somewhere along the line, her tone changed. She began pulling away, not all at once but piece by piece. At first, I thought she was just stressed. Her job had become more demanding. She had a new manager who, according to her, was too controlling. So, when she started staying late at the office, I didn't question it. I trusted her completely. I cooked dinner, waited for her, sometimes even packed her lunch for the next day. I believed we were simply passing through a rough patch that time would heal. But time didn't fix it. Instead, her phone became her constant companion. She started keeping it face down, locking it even during casual conversations, and laughing at messages she wouldn't let me see. When I asked, she said it was just office jokes or group chats. I didn't want to seem controlling or paranoid, so I brushed off my unease. Still, the unease grew. The way she looked at me changed. Her eyes, once full of affection, now seemed distracted, like she was physically there but emotionally somewhere else. She no longer reached for my hand while we watched TV. Our morning coffee conversations turned into quick exchanges about chores and bills. The warmth had quietly left our home, but I was the last to admit it. One evening, she mentioned a work retreat. It was supposed to be a 2-day event at a lakeside resort, something her company organized every year. I encouraged her to go, thinking maybe it would help her relax. I even helped her pack, kissed her goodbye, and told her to have fun. But when she returned, something felt off. She smelled different, like a new perfume, and she avoided eye contact when I asked about the trip. Later that night, as she showered, her phone buzzed. Normally, I would have ignored it, but curiosity tugged at me. The message on the screen froze my blood. It was from a man named Eli. The preview read, "I miss you already. Can't wait for next time." I stared at it, my heart pounding so loudly I could hear it in my ears. When she came out of the bathroom, wrapped in a towel, I asked softly, "Who's Eli?" Her face drained of color. For a moment, she tried to act confused, then quickly muttered, "Oh, just a co-worker." But the lie was too thin to hide behind. I didn't yell. I didn't demand explanations. I simply went to bed, pretending everything was fine. But inside, something broke beyond repair. Over the next few days, I watched her closely. I noticed how often she smiled at her phone, how quickly she locked it when I entered the room, and how she began to invent reasons to be away from home. Work meeting, team dinner, client call. They all became excuses for something else. I could have confronted her. I could have demanded honesty. But instead, I decided to find the truth on my own. One afternoon, she said she was working late again. I waited until she left, then drove to her office. I parked across the street, waiting, telling myself I'd probably just see her walk out with co-workers. Hours passed. At around 9, I saw her finally step outside. But not alone. Eli was there. They laughed, and he put his arm around her shoulders as they walked toward his car. My stomach twisted, but I stayed silent. Watching them drive away together felt like watching the last 3.5 years dissolve into smoke. I followed from a distance. They stopped at a small Italian restaurant on the edge of town, the kind with dim lighting and candles on every table. From outside, I could see them sitting close, holding hands across the table. When she leaned forward and kissed him, something inside me shut down completely. I didn't cause a scene. I didn't walk in or expose her in public. Instead, I quietly turned the car around and drove home. The road blurred to my tears, but my mind was strangely calm. I knew then that our marriage was over, even if she didn't realize it yet. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat in the dark living room, staring at the wedding photo hanging above the fireplace. We looked so happy, two people believing in forever. I wanted to hate her, but what I felt instead was emptiness, the kind that sinks deep and settles like a stone in your chest. Over the next few days, I made a plan. I didn't tell anyone. I didn't call her family or my friends. Quietly, I began moving my things one box at a time to a storage unit. Clothes, personal papers, old photos. I set up a new bank account, transferred a portion of my savings, and found a small apartment across town. She didn't notice, or maybe she did and chose not to ask. She was too busy texting, smiling at her screen, and pretending everything was normal. On the morning I decided to leave, she was getting ready for another work meeting. I stood there, watching her brush her hair in the mirror, wondering how someone could lie so easily while standing just a few feet away from the person they vowed to love. I said softly, "You look beautiful today." She smiled faintly, distracted, replying, "Thanks, I'll be late tonight, so don't wait up." That was it. No goodbye kiss, no hug, just silence. When she walked out, I packed the last of my things, left my house keys on the kitchen counter, and slipped a short note under her coffee mug. It simply said, "I know. Please don't contact me." Then I left. Driving away from the house felt unreal. Every corner of that place held memories. Our first Christmas, late-night talks, her laughter echoing through the halls. But those memories no longer belonged to the same person. I wasn't running away. I was freeing myself from a lie. I checked into a modest apartment that evening. The silence was heavy but peaceful. No phone buzzing, no pretending. Just me and the reality I had been avoiding. For the first week, I ignored her calls and messages. She sent dozens of them, confused, desperate, angry. "Where are you? Why are you doing this? Please talk to me." I didn't reply. She didn't deserve my explanation. She had already made her choice when she chose him. A week later, I received one final message. "I'm sorry. It was a mistake." But some mistakes can't be undone, especially the ones that rewrite your trust. Even now, months later, I can still remember the calmness I felt walking away. It wasn't revenge. It wasn't bitterness. It was simply acceptance, the kind that comes when you finally stop fighting for someone who already let go. I had loved her with everything I had, but love, no matter how deep, can't survive betrayal. The days following my quiet departure were a blur of stillness and strange peace. I expected chaos, shouting, tears, maybe even confrontation, but there was nothing like that. Instead, the silence wrapped around me like a heavy blanket. It was unfamiliar at first, but over time, it started to feel like safety. Every morning, I woke up to an apartment that didn't hold memories of her. No scent of her perfume, no half-empty coffee mug on the counter, no trace of the life we once shared. I thought that would make me feel lonely, but it didn't, not in the way I expected. It felt like breathing after being underwater for too long. For the first time in years, I didn't have to pretend everything was fine. I could finally sit with my own thoughts, painful as they were. I replayed moments from our marriage, the laughter, the quiet evenings, the way she used to rest her head on my shoulder during movies. Those memories hurt, but I didn't push them away. I needed to face them, to understand where things had gone wrong. It wasn't just a betrayal that broke me. It was realizing how slowly she had drifted away while I kept holding on, blind to the distance growing between us. I blamed myself for a while. Maybe I hadn't been attentive enough. Maybe I had missed the signs. Maybe love had turned into habit, and she was just too afraid to say it. But then I reminded myself, honesty was always an option. She didn't have to betray me to leave. A few weeks passed before she showed up at my apartment. I hadn't given her my new address, but she must have found it through mutual friends. When I opened the door, she stood there, eyes red, hair messy, looking like she hadn't slept in days. "Can we talk?" she asked softly. I hesitated but stepped aside. She walked in, scanning the small apartment like she was seeing another version of me, one that didn't belong to her anymore. "I didn't mean for things to happen like this," she began. "It just got out of control." I said nothing. I let her speak because there was nothing left to defend. "I didn't love him," she continued, voice trembling. "It was just attention. He made me feel seen. But I swear I never stopped loving you." Her words didn't move me. Maybe once. They would have shattered me, but not anymore. I had spent too many nights replaying her choices. Too many mornings reminding myself that love without respect isn't love at all. I finally said, "You had every chance to talk to me, Emily. You could have said you weren't happy. You could have been honest." Tears streamed down her face. I was scared. I didn't want to lose you. I let out a slow breath. "You lost me the moment you lied." The silence that followed was deafening. She looked around the apartment, maybe expecting to see a photo of us, something that still tied me to her. But there was nothing. I had cleared it all. "I'll sign whatever papers you need," I said quietly. "I don't want to drag this out." She nodded slowly, her shoulders shaking. "I deserve that," she whispered. Then she looked at me with eyes that once made me feel safe and said, "I really did love you." I didn't reply. I simply opened the door and waited until she stepped out. When the door closed behind her, I leaned against it, letting the weight of finality sink in. It was over, completely, irreversibly over. The months that followed were strange but freeing. I threw myself into work, started going to the gym again, and spent time reconnecting with friends I had unknowingly pushed away during my marriage. Slowly, I began to feel like myself again, not the broken version who left a note on a kitchen counter, but the man I used to be before trust turned into fear. Sometimes, I'd run into mutual acquaintances who mentioned seeing Emily around town. I never asked about her, but they'd tell me anyway that she looked tired, that she had quit her job, that things between her and Dilla had fallen apart. I never felt satisfaction hearing that. There was no joy in her downfall. I just felt numb, like that chapter had ended long ago. I did, however, learn something important. Silence has its own kind of power. When you walk away quietly, you take control of your own peace. You don't need to scream or seek revenge. You just need to stop giving your energy to someone who doesn't deserve it. One evening, about 6 months after I left, I received a letter in the mail. There was no return address, but I recognized her handwriting immediately. My hands trembled slightly as I opened it. Inside, she had written, "I think about you every day. I wish I had been honest when I had the chance. You were the best thing that ever happened to me, and I destroyed it. I don't expect forgiveness. I just hope you find happiness, the kind I couldn't give you." I read it once, then again. For a long time, I stared at the paper before folding it neatly and placing it in a drawer. I didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. Her apology didn't erase what she had done, but it gave me closure, the kind that doesn't come from confrontation, but from acceptance. Years later, I'd sometimes catch myself remembering her in small, unexpected ways. A song on the radio, the smell of rain, the sight of a certain cafe we used to visit. But instead of pain, I felt a quiet sense of gratitude. She had broken me, yes, but through that breaking, I had learned what self-worth truly meant. I learned that love isn't about sacrifice at the cost of your peace. It's about mutual respect, honesty, and choice. When one person stops choosing you, you have to choose yourself. A close friend once asked me why I didn't expose her, why I didn't tell her family or mutual friends the truth. My answer was simple: because I wanted to heal, not humiliate. I didn't need revenge. I just needed freedom. And I found it the day I walked away without looking back. Over time, I met new people. I wasn't looking for love, but it found me in the most unexpected way. Quiet, patient, genuine. She knew about my past, about the betrayal, and never once judged me for it. She showed me that love doesn't need grand gestures to be real. Sometimes it's in the little things. Morning coffee shared in silence, a reassuring hand on your back, a smile that says, "You're safe here." One evening, as we sat watching the sunset from the balcony, she asked softly, "Do you ever miss her?" I thought for a moment before replying, "No." I miss the man I was before her lies. But I don't miss her. She nodded, understanding without words. That's when I realized healing doesn't mean forgetting. It means learning to carry the pain without letting it control you. Looking back now, I don't see those 3.5 years as wasted. They were lessons, hard, painful lessons, that taught me the value of truth and the importance of walking away when love turns into deception. If I could go back, I wouldn't change how I left. I wouldn't have yelled, begged, or fought for answers. The quiet exit was the loudest statement I could ever make. It told her everything she needed to know, that I respected myself too much to stay where I wasn't valued. Sometimes people expect closure to come from the other person, but real closure comes within, from deciding that your peace matters more than your pride. So yes, I quietly left after discovering my wife's affair. And in that silence, I found everything I had lost, my dignity, my strength, and my sense of self. Because sometimes the most powerful thing you can do after being betrayed isn't revenge. It's peace. And peace, I've learned, is the sweetest kind of revenge there is.